All right, folks, we are back in the Fireside PM podcast, and I've got Chris Jaffe, who is the title Chief Design Officer. What is
That
your
is the
current
title.
title, Jim?
That is the title.
The Chief
Chief
Design
Design
Officer
Officer, YouTube.
of YouTube,
Mhm.
a very a prominent video platform for anybody who's not heard of it. So, welcome to the show, Chris.
It's great to be here. Good to see you, Tom.
Yeah, likewise. Why don't we just start with a little bit of your career journey? Like, how did you end up in this role? Like, where did the story begin? Did you study design in college? Is that and this was kind of like the plan all along?
Not at all. Not at all. No, it has been a big meandering journey. No one is more surprised, I think, about my trajectory in terms of the diversity of jobs that I've had, I think probably than me. Yeah, starting out in college, I went to college at the University of Arizona. Originally was pursuing a computer engineering degree. And then through, kind of a bunch of different avenues, ended up, surprisingly enough, getting a marine biology degree in the middle of the desert. But really enjoyed it, and was also an opportunity to follow one of my passions, which has always been the ocean, marine world, and also doing a lot of photography as part of that work. And so it was a great way to spend a lot of time in Mexico, and I just loved it. And so, but I was, my focus there was thinking about what I want to do with my life. I wasn't really sure. And so I was very much interested in the environment, in the ocean, and thinking about photography as a great medium to communicate a lot of that. I'd started doing some of that work on the side. And then thinking that if I didn't go to grad school right away, I would never go, which I think is true, actually. I went to Cornell, where I got a degree in communication. And it was there that and I had a kind of environmental and science focus in that work, but also kind of ended up veering into some computer graphics work. And they had an interesting interdisciplinary program at the time that was computer graphics and business and communication kind of all wrapped up into one, which I really enjoyed. And it was, I think it was the kind of initial tech bubble. Things were exciting. There's a lot of great things going on. So I found that energizing after Cornell. I really enjoyed that work. I loved being at Cornell. I did not like the weather in upstate New York. As somebody who was an Arizonan, who liked a lot of sunshine, it was hard. And actually I met my wife there too, and we both were kind of sunshine people, and we had to get out in upstate New York. So then for the next few years, I pursued a career in photography, in doing underwater and travel and adventure photography, and I enjoyed that a lot. But one of the things through that work that was interesting to me is I'd always kind of wanted to do that work, but I found it at the time, while creatively stimulating, maybe not so intellectually stimulating. And so through doing my photography work, I started to get some recognition for the design work that I was doing on the side of my photography work. Because you have to design, I had to design on my own promotional materials, design my own websites, this kind of stuff. Those things started to get recognition. And from that work, then I started backing into doing, hey, would you be interested in kind of designing our website, working on kind of thinking about how, might do some graphic design on things, for various clients. And what I found with that work is it was interesting and hard. And I really, really enjoyed that. So for a number of years, I started doing more and more design consulting, doing interactive work, and also some actual real graphic design work. Totally learned it myself, no formal training, to your question there. And really enjoyed it, and it was great. And so then started doing more photography work on the side, and then design work became my primary focus. And at that point, my wife and I were living on the East Coast. She was wrapping up her PhD, and we really were thinking about kind of where we want to live. And we really wanted to be in the Bay Area. I wanted to be in the Bay Area because that was the center of the universe for tech. And, in terms of the clients that I had up and down the East Coast, it was great. But in terms of if you really want to do this work at scale, you're really talking about being in the Bay Area. And so came out to the Bay Area. Before we moved, I came out here and just started doing a bunch of meetings, meeting people. And it was super exciting. And through one of those meetings, I met Larry Tesler, who was the head of design for Yahoo at the time, who had been at Apple and Amazon prior to that. And Larry pitched me on a very interesting job. He said, listen, I haven't been able to fill this job. No one really wants this job. He said it has no direct reports. It has, I'm not even sure what the charter is, but we think there is an opportunity to think about design at the intersection of advertising and what that means for Yahoo. He said, but the job is first going to be figuring out what the job is and what is that opportunity. Is very entrepreneurial. And so I was like, this is great. To me, that was an amazing job. And working with Larry, who later became a bit of a mentor for me, was amazing. Just learning from somebody who had such a deep background in design and kind of learning how to design at scale from him was amazing. So I took that job, and he was exactly right. We didn't know what it was. There was no team. There was no resourcing, but it was very important to the senior leadership. And we really felt like there was an opportunity to optimize the ad experience on Yahoo at the time. So did that work. I loved it. Built a small team of front-end engineers, designers, researchers, and we did a lot of things. We did new product development around new ad formats. We did a lot of optimization of the ad experience on Yahoo, which really meant spending a lot of time with the pricing and yield management team about taking ads off of Yahoo, because taking ads off then drives higher prices in the marketplace. And so, we built a much better Yahoo experience by taking ads off. So I did that work as a design lead and was there, finished. And at the end of my time at Yahoo, I was a senior director of design, and I led what we call the AdUX, or the ad user experience team for Yahoo. But there were some lessons there during my time at Yahoo. And what I saw was, while I really enjoyed the work that my design team and I did together, and the research and the design, product design work, what I saw is that there was this kind of barrier to getting product out the door. And that barrier was the PMs. And what I found was that the PMs were actually not that engaged or interested in kind of the core user needs. And I could be critical here because I spent 8.5 years being a PM. So what I found was that the PM spent a lot of time looking at dashboards, but weren't that interested in actually thinking about what the user utility of the ad products was. So I ended up, my time at Yahoo, I ended up with a relatively high degree of frustration about, listen, we have these great product ideas, we test them, they work, but then when they actually get productized at scale, they end up being at like 30 or 40% of what the product really should be, right? There was a lot of dilution that happened. So I think, for me, it sent me on a bit of a journey thinking about kind of what do I want to do, and how do you make sure that the genesis of a great product idea actually makes it out in front of users and makes it through the product, especially at scale when you're talking about something like at Yahoo scale. And so I was a little bit disillusioned, loved my team, loved the work. And then I got this kind of strange call. And it was from a recruiter at Netflix who said, hey, listen, we were a DVD company. We're getting into streaming. We think streaming is important. And this is around 2010. And we'd be interested in talking to you about a PM job. And I said, whoa, that's great. But, I'm a design guy, right? I'm a design guy. They said, yeah, no, we know that. That's what, maybe this is a good idea, maybe it's not, but we're interested in talking to you about coming over and thinking about, leading product for our TV streaming platforms. And for me, it was interesting because it kind of answered that question or that itch about, hey, listen, if the PMs are the barrier to a quality product, is part of the solution here just to become a PM? Is that the job? Is that what you should do? And then how can you use design thinking to influence the PM process, the product management process and product strategy process, to make sure that that core quality product and that real user solution and addressing that user need actually makes it out into the end product. So we had a bunch of discussions about this. And then I went to Netflix as a PM, which was interesting because I felt very much like a kind of wolf in sheep's clothing there, or a designer in PM clothing. I felt like I was kind of an imposter. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of my peers felt I was an imposter at the time. And it was hard. It was hard learning PM skills. It was hard learning kind of what that job is. And in real time, like, how do you write a great PRD? How do you like really manage a product end to end? But I did that for 8.5 years. I ended up leading all of the member experience at Netflix from product management side, and then leading the product strategy for original movies and TV shows and the original content at Netflix. So kind of had two kind of big PM jobs there, and loved it. I enjoyed it. I really felt like I understood it. It made that connection between driving great design, getting it out into users' hands. That really worked. And then from there, after about 8.5 years there, the leadership at YouTube reached out, and we started having some discussions about kind of what the future of YouTube was, and thinking about short form content and a lot of the emerging products. And after some extended discussions with the YouTube leadership, to me, it made a lot of sense to come over to YouTube to think about short form video. And we kicked off, built and launched the Shorts product in YouTube, which I think a lot of people use now, which is great. Really excited about leading that work. It was a real highlight for me. And also leading some of the emerging products like live, gaming, living room, fan funding, other things like that. And then after the Shorts product launched, I had this, we're all sitting at home, it's COVID. And I had this, I think, unexpected self-reflection time after Shorts, which was kind of, what do I want to do now? How do I think about this? Like, Shorts is out there. It's great. We're really excited about that and proud of that. And so had some discussions with YouTube leadership. I started talking to other product teams around Google about thinking about what are other product teams and other product jobs that could be really interesting across Google and YouTube. And, there were some really good ones, but nothing kind of lit up, my fire. And then Susan, who was the CEO of YouTube at the time, reached out and said, hey, here's an idea. We want to level up design. Would you consider this chief design officer role? And it was one of those moments where you're like, yep, absolutely. Yes. It was, all the months that I had been talking to other teams and other product areas around Google and thinking, yeah, maybe it's that product, maybe it's this product. When Susan brought that up, it was like, absolutely, like that sounds like the right job, and kind of going back home to design. And so that's, I've been, leading design and research at YouTube now for about 1.5 years. It's been great.
I love it. I have so many questions for you, Chris. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. And I know that was long.
No, it's great. What a journey. Let's go back to the ad experience job at Yahoo. That was kind of like undefined. Yeah. And I've heard two interpretations of those types of opportunities. One is like, hey, go for it. Like, you kind of write your own future. And then another is like, hey, if the hiring manager doesn't know what they're trying to do, like, who knows? they may change their mind 6 months later. Yeah. How do you think about that? Obviously, it worked out well for you.
I think that both sides of that are valid. I think for me, looking at it, just being really honest, I kind of looked at it and thought I had nothing to lose. I hadn't been in Silicon Valley. I had no reputation here. I had, I'd done some, design work and website consulting stuff on the East Coast. I didn't really have a rep here. And so for me, I was just thrilled to be in the door. And I thought it was a meaty problem. I immediately felt the pushback when I got in the job, to your point. I know that there were a lot of people, a lot of my peers at design at Yahoo were like, they wouldn't take meetings with me. They're like, I hate ads. You ruined my product, right? The fact that there are ads on my product, like, it's bad. And my kind of retort to that was like, but you really like your paycheck, right? Every other Friday. Like, I think we all like that paycheck. But I looked at it kind of like, well, it's my perspective was very entrepreneurial, which is like, well, let me just get in there and see what we can make work. And, I did trip and stub my toes a lot during that time, kind of figuring out where my space was. Because at that point, I think I came in as something like an L6 or L7. So I didn't really have any, strong, leadership clout in the organization. It was very much around building informal influence among teams. and kind of earning it as we go, and figuring it out and kind of reading the room about, okay, yeah, maybe this job is this and maybe this job is that. I'll give you an example. Part of there was never in my early discussions of that job any discussion about new product development as part of the charter. That was something that we kind of backed into over time. It was really around trying to make the experience better, the ways we can design pages better, layouts, etc. We backed into that. It was very entrepreneurial. It was great.
If you think about after breaking into the industry, would you still look at those types of opportunities the same way, or do you think, hey, this is the perfect thing when you're trying to break in, you don't have a ton to lose, like let's just go for it? Or like, how do you think about those types of opportunities for people who are already in the industry?
Yeah, I think if you're in the industry, some of the things I tell people that I mentor is, I think one thing that I have benefited from myself by happenstance, not by any kind of grand master plan, is to try and take jobs that were very different, right, at every step in the game, because try and learn something new. Because I did have this concern about being kind of pigeonholed, right, which is like, if I focus on, I don't know, vertical X, am I just always going to be doing vertical X forever? And so like the advertising thing had not occurred to me until Larry brought it up to me. I thought I would be doing like building, I don't know, websites, working on, I don't know, whatever. And I was like, advertising, sure. I don't know anything about advertising. Let's go in and learn it. I think those are the opportunities that I really try and counsel people to take. When you have that, when you're at those kinds of fork in the road moments, look for the thing that's going to challenge you and be hard. And for me, I didn't realize at the time, but because no one wanted that job and Larry couldn't hire anybody to do that job, it created a perfect opening for a nobody like me. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like, and I had through that in parallel, I'd gotten a lot of offers at working at, web design shops like Organic and AKQA and other ones at that time. And I was like, well, I can keep doing that kind of work, or I can kind of try and figure out what this kind of real, scaled internet product thing is. So I didn't really have much to lose.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it was a pivotal moment for you in your career. Like, who knows, what the journey would have looked like after if that didn't come up. You mentioned that this was at Yahoo. Yahoo's such a storied company. Who was the CEO at that point when you joined?
When I joined, Terry Semel was the CEO. And Terry was the CEO for about my first year or so. And then Jerry came back to be the CEO for 2 years, I believe. And then Carol Bartz was the CEO when I left.
Wow.
It was a lot of shifting,
Yeah. Any interesting kind of observations around CEO leadership and kind of, change of culture, or anything that you want to share that you might think people find interesting?
Yeah, I think it was the CEOs. My experience is that CEOs drive the culture, and in big companies, it's important. This is a lesson I learned at my time at Netflix. It's important to actively cultivate and mature and build the culture. It's an investment you have to be making from a leadership perspective. I remember I got some when Terry Semel left Yahoo, I got some great advice from Larry Tesler, my boss, who had worked very closely with Steve Jobs at Apple on the Mac and a lot of subsequent products. And he said, listen, when the founders come back, it's such a better deal. He's like, it feels different. The company feels different. And, I felt that when Jerry Yang came back to lead, it was just, there was a different kind of energy. And certainly that was the way when I was at Netflix, when Reed Hastings was CEO during my entire tenure there. You certainly felt it, right? You felt that the entire time.
What would be an example of when the founders, kind of the CEO versus a external CEO, where you feel that difference? Like, is it literally the vibe in the building, or are there specific things?
I think there's an energy. I think I'll give you an example. Carol Bartz was a phenomenal leader, and I learned, I think, some amazing things about work-life balance from her in her time there. But when Jerry moved off and Carol came in, I think it felt, with there's just with Jerry there, it felt like there was a real heritage back to the early days of the dorm room at Stanford. with, Jerry and David there. David was still around at the company doing stuff. It's just a completely different energy. You feel like you're part of that thing. And I think that when you have somebody who's not a founder come in, you feel like you're part of an organization. It's, you're part of a capital C company, and that's what you're doing. But that DNA, it's just a different energy. It feels different.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. You mentioned that after taking the design role, it broke my heart a little bit to hear you say that PMs are the obstacle to product excellence or great products. They were focused on the dashboard. So can you elaborate more, like why? Because in theory, the product manager should be focused on amazing products that deliver joy to users.
Yeah, no, I think this is very much also a company culture thing. I saw the absolute opposite situation at Netflix, where the PMs were very engaged. The PMs are outgoing, doing user research, sitting in the, in the back rooms in the labs as we were testing prototypes. I mean, I did it there as a PM. So I think it's a company culture thing. What I saw at Yahoo was that we had a lot of what I would call kind of cookie cutter PMs, which is like MBA. Maybe they got a CS degree, then they go get an MBA, and they come in and they're like, all right, I'm prepared to build products. But I saw a very little user sensitivity, right? And real sensitivity and empathy to the user journey and the pain points that the user has, right? And it was very much kind of saying, well, if we do this product, we're going to up revenue by this, and maybe I get promoted on that, and that's a better idea. And we can just cut these corners because we'll launch that this quarter, and then promo is next quarter. I saw a lot of those kinds of, I think, that kind of decision-making path working out. I didn't see that at Netflix, and I don't see that. I don't see that at YouTube. But I think that was what kind of soured me on it specifically at Yahoo.
Yeah. How do you find that kind of middle ground between being impact driven and ensuring that what we launch is landed and has improves the business with that deep empathy and creativity and kind of magic that sometimes isn't super structured?
Yeah.
How do you find that balance?
I think product work, good product work, or maybe good consumer product work, really starts with understanding the user problem, having empathy for that, and having a real passion to solving that. So for me, whatever good or bad I've had, I have tried to not upfront think too much about the business opportunity. What I've tried to do is to say, okay, I have a first principles belief that if we solve the user problem elegantly, that will lead to good things for the business. I can't tell you if that's like a $500 million improvement or $1 billion or a $5 improvement, but let's focus on the user problem at the outset of the project. That is important. Let's understand what the user needs are. And if you build solutions and products to solve that user need, I've only seen good come from that. Rather than doing a lot of, I think it's important to do modeling and other kinds of things, but I think that only takes you so far. And this is one of the things that Susan, the CEO of YouTube, when we started on the Shorts project, she was very clear about giving us the direction: build a great product for users. Just do that. We'll figure out the business and the monetization side later. Just figure out really what users want out of YouTube for short form video. Experiment, iterate, build, go talk to users. Just do that. That's the job. Just do that. And I really do believe that. And that was what I didn't actually see at Yahoo. I didn't see that. And at Netflix, I think the way, I used to approach it with my PM team there was, for us, if we can make our users' lives that much better, just a tiny little bit better with what we're able to do and make the product better, that will be great for the product. So it was always, just always trying to figure out to solve those user problems, centering on those, going deep on those up front at the beginning of a project, I think is absolutely critical to the long-term success and viability of the business.
Yeah. Speaking of YouTube Shorts, like huge congratulations.
Love that product.
My God. I have to say, when I heard that we were going to try and build those kinds of things, I was like, that's going to be hard. We're not known for that. Our platform is kind of optimized for a different type of format. There are other people that are doing pretty well at it. What do you think? In some ways, I feel like YouTube kind of beat the odds and now has such a strong offering. I mean, my kids watch YouTube Shorts, and they used to be like re-uploads from other platforms. Now they're watching original YouTube Short stuff from YouTube Shorts creators. What do you think was sounds like one of the things was not focusing too much on the business opportunity and really nailing the customer problem. What are some other lessons learned that you'll take for the next big kind of challenge ahead?
Yeah, I think the thing when the YouTube Shorts project for me was about the YouTube mission, as you know, is give everyone a voice and show them the world. And I think when we think about giving people a voice, people want to share their voices in any possible way. That could be a landscape video, it could be a vertical video, it could be a 20-minute video, it could be a 30-second video. And so I think one of the things that's been so amazing about YouTube, and we see this just continually with the innovation coming out of the YouTube product teams, is just always looking at new ways for people to be able to share their voices, whether it's live, whether it's shorts, all these kinds of things, innovating around the traditional VOD experience. There's just so many, the more diverse ways that we can support people being able to share their voice, especially as the ability to share your voice is so much easier now, with just everybody everywhere around the world has a mobile phone that can shoot a video, right? That opens up, I think it makes the YouTube mission, which has been, consistent for a long time, much more expansive, because really it's so much more empowering. And so, I think it's that is thinking about tying back to mission and thinking about the products in a much more open-ended way around how people are using it and what its value is really key.
Totally. Love it. You then, after your time leading design, you made that switch to Netflix as a PM leader. I'm curious, what do you think made you a better PM leader because of such a strong design background? Certainly, yeah, you encountered some wolf in sheep's clothing stuff, but I'm guessing there were times where you're like, oh, this is handy that I've been a designer all these years to be a great PM leader.
Yeah, so I think the key, I think, accelerant that I had there was having spent so much time on the design side. I had a much faster, I think I had a much more refined toolkit for getting to the core of what the user problem was. And understanding how the value of research plugs in, how the value of data plugs in, looking at the 360 degrees. And also, we spent during the Netflix time, spent a lot of time with users. I think if you do a lot of user research and you spend a lot of time in design, you learn to kind of tease out what users are really telling you. So I'll give you an example. So let's say that you're doing a user research session about a new feature. There's a button that does something, right? Maybe you sit in the lab, users come in and your researcher takes them through, oh, here's the button, what happens? How do you think about it? Does it work? Whatever, do you see it? But through those sessions, what you learn that's most important is not about the button and how the button works. What you really learn is that's an opportunity to recalibrate your product instincts every time. How are people using the product? What do they need out of the product? What are their struggles with the product? Oh, did you see how everybody just flew by the search, the search tab? We're here actually to figure out that little button, but look, we got a problem on search. And so, I think one of the things I learned during my time in design prior to being a PM was I learned that user expectations for consumer digital products evolve meaningfully about every 9 months, right? That's been kind of my take. And as a PM, if you understand that, then when you're going and doing research, for me, I was used to use those research opportunities as ways to constantly be recalibrating my instincts, right? Not only about, hey, listen, does that button work? Sure, we'll figure out if the button works or not, if it's a good idea, but largely, how are people using the product? And maybe they're using the product in a new and different way we hadn't thought of, or we got to change something because it's becoming stale and not working well.
Yeah, I love the notion of constantly calibrating your product instincts. That's gold. What was it like working with design leads at Netflix, having been, a design leader longer than you had been a PM leader at that time?
Oh, it was great. It was great. I remember the living room design lead at the time came up to me. I think maybe on my 5th day, he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna set up time next week. We're gonna take about 3 hours. We're gonna go sit in a conference room. I'm gonna show you how to design for TV, just so you know, because you're gonna need to know that." No, it was hand in glove. It was great. I think we immediately kind of saw the opportunity here. But they also taught me a lot. And I remember in my early days, maybe my first 6 months at Netflix, one of the things I felt like there was a big opportunity to improve the visual design at Netflix, but that was something that was likely not going to be a metrics mover. It would maybe be a sentiment mover, but not a core kind of performance metrics mover. And Netflix is very focused at that time, much smaller company. So, for us, the trade-offs and the opportunity costs around what do we pursue were really, really important. And so I remember one of my design leads said, "Yeah, listen, like we'll have the team cycle up, a bunch of different visual design executions, and they're going to love that. And that's going to be great. And Netflix is going to look so much better. But are you sure you really want to do that as a PM?" And and he was right. And I canceled the project as a result, because it was like, no, actually, that's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do as a PM is to think about continuing to make the overall product experience, which was very immature at the time because it was early days, to make that better. And let's just make the actual visual design of Netflix better through our core work every time we launch a new feature or we update a UI. Let's not do a standalone project. That's not the right way, the responsible way to use the resources. I thought that was amazing feedback that he gave me, and I totally pivoted because of it. He was absolutely right, and I was wrong.
What advice do you have for PMs that, are trying to build great partnerships with their design counterparts? I think a lot of time we talk about PM-Eng relationships. That's obviously very important. I feel like over the years, the PM design relationship has become more and more important.
Yep.
And I'm curious what advice you would have around that.
I think that when I look back on it, I think having been on both sides of the coin, I think that PMs and designers are actually just different sides of the same coin. Okay. We're actually much closer than we think we are. It's just what we're oriented towards. PMs are oriented a little bit more towards metrics and the needs of the business. Designers are oriented more towards the needs of the user. To your point, we need to be great on both. The advice that I would have for PMs is, and I have the same alternative advice for designers, is for PMs, your natural instinct is to dive into the needs of the business. How do we solve those problems for the business? What are the metrics, et cetera? The unnatural part is to go dive into the user empathy and the user problem. Spend more time on that. Understand where your weak muscles are. That's where your weak muscles are. On the design side, your safe space is going to be empathy, spending time with users, understanding their needs, research, design. Your uncomfortable space is going to be about understanding the business, and you need to do that. You need to spend more time. You need to be as fluent in dashboards and the needs of the business and the constraints that we have around the business as your PMs do. You have to come meet them halfway. PMs have to meet designers halfway on the user empathy and user needs side, and designers have to meet them halfway on the metric side. And that's a frustration I have with designers. Is I see designers, oh no, I don't do metrics dashboards. That's not me. That's the PM. No, we're all in this game together. You want to build really great products, you got to have the art and the science together, and they have to both be, I think, constantly challenging themselves into their uncomfortable spaces.
I love it. That's such great advice. I know we're a couple minutes over. There are two comments in the YouTube live chat that I wanted to highlight. If you have a minute or two to chat about.
Hit me. Yeah,
so the
sure.
first one's from Brittany Crosby. I think she's complimenting the conversation, saying she appreciated hearing about the different paths of PM and the inspiration she gets from you. what advice do you have for people who are in the PM ladder today, but may have come from, a different function years prior, and that do kind of feel like that imposter syndrome? What tips should they think about?
I think one piece of this is understand that what got you to be good at the job that you have right now is probably that other context that you're bringing to the table. Like, I think that was, one of the things that, I've always felt about how when I was interviewing for jobs or talking to prospective teams about joining teams, is I was always pretty clear, like, listen, I am not that CS MBA guy. And that's not me. If that's what you want, and I'm not saying that I'm not, no value judgment, but I do, it's like matchmaking. Like, do you want somebody who's going to bring those other skills? So if you are that person who's bringing those other skills, understand that's part of your value add. That less about imposter syndrome. That's the juice that you are bringing. You are bringing those voices and those skills to the table that maybe the team wouldn't be able to get because you're not there.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I sometimes see when people come from other functions, they do the opposite. They try and kind of bury their past, but it's kind of, that's the part of their secret weapon. That's why, they are often given that opportunity, is because they bring that unique vantage point.
Yeah.
Last question is from Vedant, who's saying, hey, should designers be the ones leading the product vision instead of the product team? And you hear talk now, I think Airbnb is like design-led product development. You're able to kind of speak, having both been on both sides. Surely the product should.
I'm with you, Tom. I think it's a great question. My answer to this is there is no one answer. I think it is real. I've thought about this a lot, actually, and it's a very good question. I think it is very tied to the culture of the company. So what I saw at Netflix has a very specific, when I was there, a very specific PM execution model. PMs didn't have direct reports. PMs were owners of their parts of the business. They owned the 360 degrees of the product strategy. They partnered with engine design. And they built great products. That totally works in that culture. On the YouTube side, we have much more of Eng, PM, and UX working together on things. I don't think there's a right answer here, but I think there is a right answer relative to the culture that you're in and making sure that everyone's voices are heard. So do the designers bring it? Do they own that vision? No, I don't think that. Do the PMs own it? No, I think this is about making sure that that vision is coming to the table. It's getting light. People are seeing it and hearing it. But I've seen so many different configurations work that I think there's no right answer. But I think you should trust your gut if you feel like it's not working. If you feel like, God, we're just constantly missing, or the products they land, but they're not like landing like straight on like we really thought they would, I think that's time for self-reflection. If you feel like, we're close, but we just don't seem to keep hitting it, then I think it's time to reflect about, what are the roles and responsibilities relative to how our culture is and how we execute, and are we really making sure that the user voices and the user needs are really coming to the forefront.
Great advice, Chris. What a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much
Thank you, Tom,
for agreeing to give a little bit of your weekend morning. Was there anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap up? This has been great.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's always great. I think, the best that we can do in these roles, whether you're a PM, whether you're a designer, I think is to keep really showing up for our users. At the end of the day, to me, that's the job. The job is, we're really the vessels for those user needs.
Amen, brother. Thank you so much, Chris. Take care,
Thanks,
buddy.
Tom. Good to see you.
Bye.